All right, folks, welcome to the recording of the after chapter discussions for Interlude, Another Time, and chapter 10.17 of The Wandering Inn. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. And for people who are just joining us, who haven't been here before, we have two channels going. There's the ACD live chat where you can just talk about everything all the time. ACD reactions and comments channel is going to be stuff that I'm going to be reading out loud as response to the questions that'll be raised and as we discuss things in the chapters today. With that said, when it's someone's turn to talk, say your piece and then, go ahead and take a break and we'll let the other people talk just so we can keep things moving along because we got a lot to cover and a lot of people here today. Um, so people can go ahead and start typing up a short little summary, or if they want to just give their overall impressions. I think what we'll do first is just talk about the interlude, and then we'll talk about chapter 10.17, just because they're very dense on material, but they're very different subjects at the same time. So we don't necessarily want to be mixing them up. So you can start typing your thoughts into the reactions channel if you want me to read them out loud for you, or if you want to just say them yourself, you can go ahead and ping me in there, and then I'll start calling out names in a moment here while people have their chance to put their thoughts together. And I'm just going to copy the questions that we got on our little question sheet here into the reaction channel for people to look at. In case you need some thoughts on what to talk about for the chapter. I know it's like Mr. Europe's ready to go with his thoughts, so I'm going to let him take it away. Tell us your thoughts on the interlude.
It was very, very interesting, the first interlude. I really enjoyed that we got this now. I really like that with the new schedule, Pirate can add a small novel, like a little chapter, just a tiny 10,000 words of extra stuff that didn't really fit in the previous chapter, but will be good now rather than in another 5 or 10 chapters. And it was just the big lore dump, kind of, even though it didn't reveal much on the major mysteries. I think it was just a lot of things that have been hanging over for a long time, and it was just very it's the same thing as when Terry talks, or when they read out from the history books in earlier chapters, just the deep dive into an ancient thing spanning thousands of years, or certainly centuries, and just very, very lore heavy, but in a very well written, I think, way. And just, I'm really enjoying Sylvania's just jumping around, kind of randomly talking. It's why I really loved when Kilbakich talks about his past, and he does story time. It's just this kind of strange, in character of the lore of this place, and especially Rear is just so mysterious still after all this time, and I really, really liked it.
Absolutely. Diegetic history lessons are delightful, and Sylvania's willingness to turn it into an action movie and a 16-hour long epic to tell a very small part of her story. And I know we would all pay millions of dollars to see the whole thing if we could.
And I really enjoyed the short, my favorite part of the interlude was probably the little glimpse of Saria's grandmother, who we've always seen as the sick old half-elf who died at some point, and Saria was very sad about it, and now we get into this grumpy knight, and I really enjoyed that. That's the first real view we ever have of her.
Yes, yeah, that was a great reveal of the grandmother and the village that she grew up in, the village of Spring. Sidehammer said, absolutely love the interlude, so dense with lore, so very exciting. And then next we have Bleach Soul.
Yes. I also liked the lore of the chapter. I thought it was very well done. To give us like backstory about what's supposed to be now major character for the upcoming arc, Tsuri. So it's really good. I want to see like first I'm intrigued by her class. I think like she's a wizard or something. And I want to see if she opens like Wistrom up the upper floors of Wistrom, and of course she gonna teach Syria some magic and probably Pisces and stuff. So I like the lore of the issues and the history behind also the conflict in the Blighted Kingdom. So we have some background story right now. But what I really wanted to know, to be quite frank, is why Sylvania has turned over to the demons. What was the truth that she realized it? So, but that will be probably for another time. So, yes, that's it.
Yes. That'll be for Leno's birthday next year. We'll finally get that. The real question is, though, what the hell are those chickens? Something to ponder. Next, we have Red Ink. Red Ink Quill.
Okay, so this chapter and like the interlude and the latest chapter, they both started in a way of things going on Earth, like our planet. And it was such a fake out. I was like, what story am I reading for like the first paragraph? When I
It
was
was evil.
It was so evil. And then like suddenly, oh, Sylvania, it's Sylvania in the helicopter. Okay, so it's from this story. I just thought it was funny. I really liked that we like learned about Saria's grandmother and how she was a badass. I think it's just unfortunate how warriors, for some reason, can't extend their lives like mages can. Because like you'd think they'd be good at like cultivating the body or something, but they all seem to like go senile and everything, and they can't seem to outlast magic. Magic is OP in this world. Although warriors in a fight, warriors are pretty strong also. But like in terms of longevity, like mages can definitely live longer. I really like, even though this is a lore dump chapter, it felt very like important to what's going on in the world today, like how the Blighted Kingdom came to be, how it came to be that Sylvania was against them, what's Sylvania's history. And then we learned more about this new character. I would say that the chickens probably were the slimes, like squishy, like 50 or something. But there was something about like eating eggs in the last chapter, so I have no idea. It's kind of confusing to me. But I enjoyed it. All right, that's it.
Chicken slime laying slime eggs. I think we were up to squishy 142 way back in the last flashback where there was a number on the squishy. I'm not 100% on that. I don't know if I read the Nomen Rumors correctly, but that's what I estimated it to be, if I read it right.
You might be right. It was like C something, so C is 100. Yeah.
Yeah, C, XL, L is 50, and then it was, so yeah, so it should be 142, if I remember my Roman numerals.
Yeah. You're right. But I just thought it was like a wild chapter. And it was like, it's so funny how, 10,000 words compared to other Pirate Opera chapters isn't that much. But this was just like an extra bit. And also, it's so much longer than like almost every other author will release on a regular basis. So I was very thankful for it.
Absolutely. Next, we have Morshan, who said 2 banger chapters, 12 out of 10 for both. both the lore chapter and the Nerhavia slapter. For the interlude, great written lore dump split between Sylvania and Seri, great stylistic choice, and truly it is glorious. Superbred Ninja said, I'm guessing Seri is some kind of sorcerer with the familiars, another good option for the class. It is very deliberately ambiguous so far. And then next we have Oshi.
Hey everybody, long time no see. Should I do the AA announcement? No, we're not doing that. Look, this was. Are we actually? Let me I had to mute myself. Deafen myself for a little bit. Bookcase. Am I covering just the interlude?
Just the interlude.
First?
Yes, interlude first. Okay. We'll do the interlude questions, and then we'll do 1017.
Cool. What impressed me about the interlude wasn't what was unsaid. There is an impression that Syria's grandmother is like directly heavily involved in Rear. There wasn't even like when what is I'm blanking on her name for a second. What is Sylvania's grandmother's name?
Oh, Seri?
No.
Layla.
Sorry, Layla. Not
Syria's grandmother.
Syria's grandmother's Layla.
Okay, Layla.
So Leilana, I think was the full name, but
Laylatha.
Thank you. Layla went straight up to Sylvania and said hello as if she knew who Sylvania was for a long, long time. There was not even like hesitation, which means that Syria's grandmother is intimately connected with Rear and has been for her entire existence. The idea that she died under mysterious illness circumstances, despite being in a village that's meant to preserve you forever, and in one of the few ways that has been mentioned. Like, I went back to the chapter where Syria talks about her life in the village when she is walking into the little ship with the alchemist dude. She literally mentions like the only ways that village elves, like half elves, kind of die. One of the few ways is through disease. So you have to imagine if the only way to kill her was through disease, and she'd existed for this long, why was she suddenly dying of a disease that affected nobody else? And the end result of all this rambling is Rear killed Syria's grandmother. Why? Why then? And Syria clearly doesn't know about any of this. What the fuck is going on? Who is Syria's parents? Is she a princess? We need to know! And that's where I was at the end of the chapter. I didn't even get into all the magic business and all the things the pirate teased us with, which they will never reveal. I don't care about any of that stuff. Syria is one of my top 5 characters, and I want to know, where is this mysterious background coming from? Rear assassinated Layla. And did it when nobody would notice. And in a way, nobody would notice. Somehow, she gets a mysterious illness that only affects her, that kills her. Like, did she break a contract? It was protecting Syria part of, like, what happened? How did nobody else notice? The only reason nobody else would notice is if Layla decided to allow herself to die without telling any of her bestie friend, who she apparently named Aunt to Syria. Like, think about it. Layla had to didn't just die like instantly. She died over a period of time. There was no thought from this person who interacted with the world a whole fuck ton, to go like, I need help. They can help me. She chose to die. What the fuck is going on? And that is where I left my reaction. Thank you.
Also, who the fuck was the other Springwalker that was with Niers in the Labyrinth of Souls? Which fucking one was that?
Sprinkling these Springwalkers all over the place. And just like being so like, goddamn important. Springwalker Village is not important. It's just a place where time stops affecting people.
Syria is full of shit. She's been hiding stuff this whole time.
I think nobody told her.
And I went back
Also,
to the
nobody
moment.
told her. That's true. She was absolutely just ignorant.
Yes, she's absolutely. But here's the thing. I also went back to the moment when Syria meets Terriarch for the first time at the inn, and Terriarch's like, I remember the casually calling her a child thing, and says, "Study for 20 more years and come back." I thought it was more like admonishing her the way he admonishes everybody, because everybody's a kid to her. No, he was actually noticing that she's a baby child. What is going on?
Valid. So many questions to be answered still. Every time Pirate tells us something interesting, they give us 40,000 more questions. So reading some more comments here, Dart Time Gowoos said, I still can't believe somehow no one invented the Wine Breath Blaster before Valmira. That is a good question. Maybe they just named it after her because she was cool enough to name it after.
Yo, sorry to ask this question, but what is a wine breath blaster? I was literally blanking about this.
So it was first mentioned by Neril, the diplomat, as like this classic diplomatic trick of getting somebody to spray wine out of their face into like a crowd of people or whatever, because you just stunned them so hard with whatever you did or said that the only reaction they had could be to blast their drink out
It's a
of their
spit
mouth.
take. It's a really big spit take, and the whole
Yeah.
purpose of it was either as a distraction, as a way to embarrass, basically a trick in social in social.
And see, the fact that it was called Wine Breath, I always assumed it had to be a Drake invention because they were like dragon breath everything. So of course they would have wine breath. But apparently it was this Wisdom mage who, I mean, Valmira, do we know she was human? She could have been a Drake, right?
I think we know she's human. It was mentioned
Okay.
when we went to visit the island. I think with what's
Oh,
with
right,
Teresa,
right.
remember? Yeah,
The Archmage Island, the fancy
yeah.
paradise
That's
place.
her
Yeah.
island. That's Valmira's island.
Right, right. Yep. Okay. So next we have Sir Bear.
No, I really like this chapter. It's so much information in that short chapter. It was great. It was fun. The Vietnam part was funny as hell. It was a great chapter that answered a lot of questions that everybody had from the one from before. So it was great. It was great. Some information. We didn't have to wait a thousand years for that. Congratulations, Pirate. I don't agree with some stuff that had been said, like the rare theory part, but the rare Lilia part, but that's a thing for later. But yeah, it was a really great chapter, like a 8 or 9 out of 10.
Yes, absolutely. The power of the new writing schedule is really showing its stuff here. Let's see here. Reddings chimed in with a comment about the rear Layla assassination. Yeah, even Nubitin mentioned it. Like, he thought it was really suspicious how she died. And if he's thinking it, then there's probably something backing it up in our minds to also be thinking the same thing. And then Sahelis says, the only thing that happened recently to catalyze this were the Antinium. Recently being a relative term. Rear could have been reacting after letting the Antinium leave the continent, or perhaps they killed her in anger because she didn't help against the Antinium. I hope Harasi will tie into this. If Saria is important, I hope the Hero Makers bring this out. Right, because that's their next arc, is a training arc at the Kingdom of Hero Makers, or the Scholarium of Hero Makers, however they're titled themselves. And that is a good point. Around 20 years ago, when she left, is when the Antinium also got the hell out of there. And that was because of Sleepy. So there's all sorts of threads that are just tying together into a very large, scary ball here. And next we have Jotham.
Yeah, guys, I'm gonna be honest. I never thought about Raider assassination angle, so that was 10 out of 10. Whoever brought it up. Also, as I was reading that chapter, I was like, who thought this was a good fucking idea to raise a kid here? Like that life sounds horrible for the kid. Like imagine just living in that village though. Like I was actually horrified. Like like for example, like Syria grandmother died, and she was like all alone, and nobody fucking checked up on her. And after like 10, 20 years, people just walk out and like, oh, where is little Syria? Like that is just so horrible. Like I cannot even imagine, man. But the lore dump, I really loved it. Like we have like one of the big shot at getting introduced again, and I'm really liking it. Like how more people are leaving the village. Like more people are coming out into the country and adding to the number of high level people. I think that is like super good for the story.
And that ties into 1017 as well. We got some very high level people coming out of the woodworks, and there's a question
Yeah.
of how many more of them are still hiding someplace else in the world.
Yeah, like there's so many places to hide. Like in wandering in, like you can be sitting anywhere.
Yeah. Let's see. So Skymark says Syria has also been having doubts about her usefulness and wondering how she will improve through the start of Volume 10. Yeah, everything with the circlet that happened recently was pretty wild. So it's definitely raising some questions about what she's going to do next. So now we'll go through the questions that were in the document here. Some of them have already been kind of addressed by people just talking about their thoughts. So, like the first one there, the opening, the discussion of the Crower Wars, getting to see a little bit of it. Well, really, we saw like 2 seconds of the Crower Wars, and then it jumped ahead thousands of years to the freaking silverfish, the Soiratham. Who even knows how to pronounce that? But then they got genocided. So, I mean, if people want to talk about their thoughts about the state of war in Rear, either with the Crowers or with the Silverfish and Demons, if you have anything specific you want to say about that, go ahead and drop it in there or ping me. And then also, let's talk a little bit about our new favorite Magus, Sari, and her what the hell ever class, her amazing little slime buddies who may or may not be chickens and who may or may not be able to shoot exploding eggs that scared Sylvania? Question mark. Also, the Baba Yaga house. We got to talk a little bit about the Baba Yaga house. I can't believe nobody mentioned it yet, even though that was last chapter. So maybe I'm just, mixing and matching points here, but still. Any speculations on her class? And speaking of classes, we have no details beyond the fact that the death is somebody new. But if you have any thoughts about who they might be or what they might be or what kind of title they may end up with, throw those in there too. And then, of course, the big question that we'll finish up with after we get through the other ones is the Death of Magic's betrayal, or the Archmage of Magic's ire, betrayal, and the arise of the Death of Magic. So there's a lot of them there, but if you have any thoughts about any of them, ping me, type stuff in here. We'll see what they say. Skymark pointed out that the silverfish look a lot like the silverfish bug enemies from Elden Rings, which is a very good and very terrifying point. And now I'm wondering, well, no, Pirate invented the silverfish before Elden Ring came out, but now I'm wondering if they've changed what they look like because of Elden Ring. Tina has pointed out there's actually a discrepancy between here and Interlude Stories because before Sarampapa was the one that negotiated for them to join the demons, whereas here she barely knew about them. I don't know if that's a discrepancy per se, because just because she never really learned a lot about them doesn't mean she wasn't able to like negotiate with them and bring them into the demon organization. Especially if they were in the middle of being genocided. I'm sure the survivors were happy to have anybody on their side. And Mr. Europe says, I stand by the idea that Soirathim only exists because pirates thought silverfish with libraries was funny. It's a good point, especially since they ate the words and not the books. All the books were fine. They were still carrying the books around. They just didn't have any words left in them. And Bleach Soul, go ahead.
Yes, I really like the background about Rear and about the silverfish and the other thing that I can't pronounce. Also, like I'm not sure. It's like when Kazusa said to Sylvania, "Are we gonna like fight level 80 druids now?" So I gonna stumble around all these high-level mages, or mages, or whatever magic users, spellcasters. So I think maybe it's she's not gonna be the only one who's gonna show up like on the high-level spellcaster. Maybe there's gonna be others, but I think she's gonna be like very pivotal for Syria's development, because Syria has talked about like she's gonna hit some kind of a limit with her ice magic, like because her teacher hit a limit and she couldn't like get past it. That's why she tried to challenge the golems and open Wistram. So that's it's probably gonna help. Syria probably will help with that. Also, I'm not sure if they. I'm sorry. All right. Yeah, I'm not sure if they're gonna be also like if she gonna be like very like pivotal to the war effort. Probably she's gonna help a bit, but she's not gonna be like the force that's gonna be deciding the war with whatever, like the Forgotten Wing or anything, because she's gonna try to be still hidden from the Blighted Kingdom because they're bastards. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, you have to wonder if the Blighted King's infiltration and spy networks are good enough to find out that she's active. I mean, it took Sylvania 10 seconds, but that's Sylvania, so like that's not a fair metric by any standard. But whether or not they act on anything now that she's out in the open is a very good question. And what they do or why they do it will be fun to find out. And Mortian pointed out that all these deaths and genocides everybody just casually forgot about just shows how far and deep the lies of the Blighted Kingdom goes. Like a king's truth, which we'll get into more in the next chapter in 10.17, because the Blighted Kingdom plays a very big role in the latter half of that chapter. So I know we kind of just cruised through all the questions there or thoughts for the interlude. I don't think there's anything else people have to say about it right now. So let's go ahead and get started with 10.17.
Oh, I had a theory about new death. Who was the new death? Want me to throw it here? There was a question about new death, right? Sorry, I had a theory in mind.
Go ahead.
Do you guys remember the first Arthur lady, the one with the gun that's like came into the demons? I suspect it may be her, like the
Laura.
new death for like a demons, because she spawned in there like she has like all its gun and everything, and she fought in the war effort with Sylvania, so she may be the new death.
Well, no, because she was looking at the new death. Flora was there listening to the story from Sylvania, and she was looking at the new death, and it was her first time seeing this person, but they were like wrapped up in a shawl and everything and had their face covered because they were like super wounded.
I put this one in the Hall of Shame of my theories.
I actually thought it was Nervia before the newest chapter came out.
Oh, that would have been wild, yeah.
Right? Because like I was thinking, if anyone could be a death, it's Nervia, because she's like so OP, but whatever.
Oh, Skymark said if it was one of the golems, that would be so cool. Like if they put back together Cognita's sister, and that was who it was. I think it was the Centaur one that got blown up by the Death of Voice or Death of Dust, whichever one it was, that lost that fight. The Knoll one. Okay, so I think it would have been more obvious if they were made of stone, unless something really weird happened. But it would be really cool if that turned out to be the case, that the new death is actually Zelkir's other golem. I don't think it's likely, but it's a possibility. But yeah, Pirate didn't even give us enough of a hint to be excited about for that one, which is very frustrating, but also very Pirate. So with that said, let's go into chapter 10.17, where we have to just start by reading the first sentence of the chapter, because, oh my god. Earth, May 31st, 2024, 1:45 p.m. Someone detonated a high-yield nuclear weapon in Los Angeles, California. What a fucking twist for Pirate to just be like, hey guys, we're going back to Earth and here's a nuke. And unless you were crazy like me, you all probably immediately thought, oh, there's no way. This is gonna be a world of me and you, the Knoll skill. And sure enough, 2 seconds later, we see good old Takern and Inker just watching the nuke go off and wondering what the hell is going on. And this is just the beginning of the chapter. Just the world of you and me and the Knolls trying to figure out what the hell they're doing and getting ready for this big expo they're putting on to show off all the Earther technology that they've managed to successfully steal through the skill, while also panicking and worrying about why everything was changing and acting weird, especially right at this last moment. And good lord, this is only the opening of the chapter. And then we dive right into why the skill was glitching out and why the nuke went off. And of course, it is Nerhavia, the immortal tyrant. And then I won't say any more about the rest of the chapter right now because we'll get into it as we go. But goddamn, what a delicious opening. So exciting. So what we'll do next, like I just did, we'll do initial impressions, overall thoughts on the chapter, and then we do have a bunch of questions, a lot of questions. So we'll do like brief overviews of your thoughts on the chapter, and then we'll just start going through the questions because I believe they're mostly in order of what's happening in the rest of the chapter, so it'll make it a little bit easier for us to just kind of flow through it all. So go ahead and ping me or write your thoughts, if you want to throw an impression in the chapter in there, and we'll start with the Mafia Hamster.
Yes. First of all, I did not think about the skill you and me. I really thought this is gonna be a chapter on the point of Earth, and yeah, I was
I'm not
almost.
alone.
Yeah, I really thought. I mean, we don't know what's going on Earth, and having a nuke go off there because we know there is conflict on Earth because of the missing generation, and having suddenly a nuke somewhere on Earth and like total Armageddon, I wouldn't go. I think maybe Pirate is now setting up the war between worlds, but no, it wasn't. It wasn't the case. Um, Overall, the chapter. Uh, After I finished, I thought, "What's wrong with me?" Nahavia is such a good character, because I'm personally I'm attracted to competence, and that woman is competent beyond everything. Uh, she's interesting. She is that evil thing that's now working on behalf of okay, she's on her own side, but we don't know what she is a mysterium. But overall, I wasn't really that excited about this chapter. I don't even know why. I think it was mostly boring. I mean, again, I like slice of life, but somehow this really wasn't my chapter. I don't know why.
Well, it wasn't slice of life. That's your problem right there. This
Yeah,
is politics and diplomacy
I
master level courses.
I like those as well, but I'm not really sure why.
Did it feel too much like she was bullying everybody because she's just so much better than them?
I mean, I like, and that's the problem. I like all of those because I like competence, and she just played everybody like a fiddle in this chapter, from the beginning to the end. But I somehow got bored in the middle of it, and I don't know why.
That is definitely probably going to be the minority reaction to this chapter.
Yeah,
Just
probably.
saying. But fair enough. Fair enough. Everybody's entitled to their own reaction. Next we have Red Ink Quill.
So I was surprised that about the beginning. I did not think it was the skill world. I thought this was an Earth perspective.
Mhm.
So I also fell for it. Bookcase and Mafia Hamster, we all fell for it. I really liked the chapter as opposed to Mafia Hamster. I thought the expo was great. I was super excited for all the things that were going to come out, all the bidding. I really liked that. I liked how Inkar was trying to get in the tent, but she wasn't supposed to be in there because they didn't want the other people to find out that she's an Earther. And it turned out to be like all for nothing anyway, because the Blighted Kingdom fucking tries to assassinate her later. I don't quite know how she survived, but yeah, like I don't know how she survived that. She got like 2 crossbow bolts to the face. I don't know how she was able to blow a whistle and they just popped out. I didn't quite get that. But I really like the chapter. Nervia is OP, even though she lost 10 levels. She was over Ascrash, and Ascrash is like level 78 or something. So she was like maybe in her 80s in terms of being leveled up. So she's probably like maybe low 70s now. I think that makes sense because it's hard to level up. And when you're in your 80s, I feel like even Sylvania is in her 80s and she's been around for 4,000 years. Although it's been shown that when you become immortal, you level up a lot slower. But I really like the chapter. I like what the Knolls were doing. The most interesting part to me was Nervia's definition of what peace was. It's not just when you're not going to war. It's when 2 different nations and people share a dream. And I thought, well, if that is what peace is, I'm not sure we've ever had world peace or even that much peace between nations. I guess European Union is like the biggest one, and they're still arguing about stuff. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I really like the chapter.
So I will say regarding the little safety whistle that she got from her skill that Inker was using, Pirate did kind of tease how it worked a little bit earlier because of the reverse decision skill that Nurhavia used, where she did something to Inker and then reversed the decision and it rewound it as if it never happened. And being able to implant that skill through some kind of magic into the whistle is what reversed the crossbow bolts out of her. And then she blew the whistle, which summoned the law. In this case, the amazing badass Garuda, quasi paladin something or other, to come kick some ass.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I thought that the secret that was like at the beginning of the chapter, like click this to see a secret, was going to be that hidden text in between like where that reverse decision was. So I was searching for it, but I couldn't find it. And then it turned out to be music that didn't play for me, so I never got to even listen to it.
Oh, the music. We'll talk about the music because that was wonderful. And I'm going to say it now and I'll say it again later, but Andy is a legend, and recording that in like a week or whatever and getting it to Pirate so they could figure out how to put it into the chapter was wonderful. Next, we have Bleach Soul.
I really like this chapter, but not because of Naravia. I thought I really wanted to see what the Knolls were doing, so it was great for me to see them like I wanted to see what they're inventing or what they took from Earth. So it was really I was really happy to see like they're doing more like musical instruments and like fishing rods and practical things instead of going immediately to weapon manufacturing and whatnot. Even though they are trying, to get that, but they are doing all other things too, which I'm really glad about. I find Narevia to be very boring, to be quite frank. Like she can do anything. She knows many things, and she makes everything look, I don't know, mundane in comparison to her. So that's why I don't find her. The plot point that she's gonna drive is probably important and it's interesting. I find just her character is not boring, to be really really boring. Yeah, but I mean, the overall chapter was great, but I was surprised that actually she relinquished Inkar from the Soul Heartstone, so that's plus for her. Yeah, but otherwise, yeah, it's a really good chapter. That's it.
That's fair. It's hard to like the character who's super powerful and good at everything, even if they have a very good reason for being so. Sometimes that can be a lot to encapsulate and find enjoyable, especially in a story this big and with this many things going on. Next, we have Mr. Europe.
Yes, I very much enjoyed this chapter. Just all of it. I can't really say that I believed it was Earth in the beginning because I was just kind of in disbelief, and by the time I'd properly processed it, I'd already gone to the next paragraph where it's like Tukern is there and everything. So, uh, but yeah, I really enjoyed like all the stuff with the Knowles and with the just different diplomacy coming in, and personally, I really enjoyed Naravia. I think I she's in a very special place for me because I want her to be killed as soon as possible, but only if she's still in the story. Uh, so I don't want her to go like to the afterlife. I just want her completely destroyed, but I do still want to read her stuff for a long time. So I find it very entertaining. She's like she's the most. We have a lot of evil characters in the story with Yazdil and all that, but Naravia is by far the most evil with big E supervillain character in the whole thing. She very clearly despises or very clearly enjoys being a super tyrant, and I find that very fun to read. Um, the like there were a lot of different sections that like it's a very long chapter. It's hard to find like specific parts that I like the most. I enjoyed the like Elaine and the diplomats trying to figure out what the hell is going on. Of course, the song was great and all that, and just very much in. I've always enjoyed like the social games going around. So like Narul doing his lost child routine to get in with people, and just the various different people trying to work out what to do. Even just Inkar and Naravia having a terrifying talk because Naravia is uh, bored, basically, and just describing how, yeah, everything in my, like, I did horrible, horrible things, but everything in my empire was great. And then I got bored, so I basically blew it all up.
It's very interesting how she talked about her boredom and how she described worthy people and what she considered worthy people in the crowd she was observing today. Not mostly in terms of level, it seemed to be, but also just in terms of their quality as a person. And so you have to wonder if she ran her empire for so long and so well that it wasn't just a case of she wanted to expand it and try taking on the whole world. She just stopped seeing people of quality rising up in her nation, and she decided to go out with a bang. But because she didn't survive, she didn't get to write the history book, so she goes down as the worst tyrant ever. Possible. There's a chance. Maybe she's not the worst villain, but we'll have to wait and see if we ever learn more of her history.
Yeah, I mean, we know she's a villain. We know she was horrible, and like she casually talks about being a really horrific person. Even though she was a good ruler for her people until she blew it all up out of boredom. But even then, we know of all the horrible things she does. I mean, she glossed over her slave pits that people 1% occasionally rised out of. He's not exactly a good person. Like, she deserved her title as evil ruler, even if she didn't get to write the history books.
Good point. She definitely earned that class, if nothing else.
Yeah.
And next we have Sir Bear.
So I was baited at first. I thought it was Earth, like some people here, and to realize that later it was Nemaria. That was funny because the tear is not capable of getting the plan of a plane, but Nemaria is capable of infiltrating a military base and activating nuke. So the parallel within those two stuff is extremely funny. And for the chapter, I was like everyone a bit. I was bored a bit at first because it felt like information that I already knew before. Like we know those people have know about Earth. We know these people are reacting that way. We know now now we have fallen is talking like the big dog. So the political part was a bit boring to me, especially adding another regions to for the fall of Neravia falling with another war, with another possible war. So yeah, it was a bit boring. And the Nerol part with the last child gambit was great because Nerol is fun. Each release is fun as always, especially with the Karen cameo. I think the Chapin really showed his strength toward the end with all the revelation, Neravia doing her thing and all of that stuff. Oh, I think an 8 out of 10. Oh yeah, and the song was great too.
Interesting point that nobody else seems to have brought up is that there were about 36 gnolls in disguise with Nerhavia when they were inside the world of me and you, and we saw exactly 4 of those people described in detail. So you gotta wonder what the deal is with the other 36, rest of the 36 that are still out there.
The other sucks. That's all I would say.
And let's see. Dark Time Goose says, I like how this chapter talked about Nerhavia's boredom. It ties into last chapter, which mentions Nubiton's boredom. Yeah, like he was like, and that's the thing is that her definition of boredom is pretty fair, but she likes people enough that they can keep her interested as long as they're worthy people. So now we'll go into the questions because the questions kind of break down everything in the chapter, so we can just kind of go through them and talk about specific points in the chapter. So the first one, I think everybody kind of touched it in their overview and their thoughts, is that the immortal tyrant dropped the bomb that made the skill glitch out, which is quite a thought, quite a disruption. And we've seen they can use skills when they're in a world of me and you, I believe. Or they can certainly use magic. And we know Sylvania was doing that. So that seems to be the way to get around stuff like, electronic security and break into a military base and be able to launch nukes into Los Angeles. But then you have to wonder, why aren't the Knolls doing anything more involved than going to the library? Like, why aren't they breaking into some more detailed information? Are they just trying to do the basic stuff first? Or is there more to it? Or is it harder for them to use their skills inside the world? The second one the show must go on. So, despite the glitching skills, Gnolls are playing the long game with their new lands. And now, the person who wrote this question said that they're giving the victory to the Drakes and the expo coming up. Will it create goodwill and an environment Gnolls can thrive in? Your thoughts about the Gnoll diplomacy, the GNOLL program, Gnoll new otherworldly learning lessons, and Gnoll industrialization. Now, I don't know about giving the victory to the Drakes. I think they admit that the Drakes won that engagement overall. Like, the War of the Tribes was definitely beneficial for the Drakes in the end, regardless of what they managed to get out of it prior to that with the meeting of the tribes. But the rest of it, what are people's thoughts on what the Knowles version of diplomacy is? And even though they tried their best, obviously Nerhavio was pulling all the threads in the background and making it a fucking mess for them in the interest of making the world interesting for her plans. Do you have any thoughts about what Faker was trying to do or what her plans were coming out of that event versus what we actually got? Bleach Soul pointed out they're studying all kinds of things from biology to industry, like the birdwatcher class is a great one that was mentioned. That is a good point. So they are summing some of the other industries. And I suppose it's true that a lot of the secrets and things that they would get from breaking into bases or whatnot wouldn't necessarily translate quickly or easily into technological advances for Indworld. And, you want to talk too? All right, go ahead, Bleach Soul.
Yeah, I think the null diplomacy. I don't know. I also like the nulls are like really the underdogs. They have been like mistreated for a long time. I think that's why I have lots of sympathy with them. And what they see as a defeat because of loss of many tribes and high level leaders and stuff. I mean, I thought it was a victory for not being annihilated once, and second of all, it's been a victory for getting back their magics and finding the truth about the Doombearers. So I think that's a great thing to unite all the Gnolls for one cause. So now instead of being like one tribe doing their thing, now there are multiple tribes trying to achieve progress for Gnolls. So like it's like a meeting of the tribes like still continuing instead of doing it like one time every 10 years. Now they're all like many of them they're cooperating and trying to achieve progress. So I don't so even though they thought they have lost, I don't believe I believe in the future it will be much more fruitful for them and it will be like a huge leap for the Knolls. Yeah, that's it. So
Yeah, I mean they definitely had some wins. It wasn't a unilateral loss for them for sure, but they could have gotten more out of it maybe. But we'll see what happens. Sir Bear.
I think it's with Tenyon are having a bigger problem right now because a good chunk of them are going to the new land. There's a big chunk now in Chandra and Chaos and with Floss and all of that. I think they're having problem finding some sort of ally and all of that. So the fact that they're trying to industrialize rapidly while not having the population for that is a bit weird. I think Naravia suggesting that to contact the Doombear and Salazar are great because they're a secret agent. I wonder how she knows about that, but it's Naravia. She can learn anything really. Uh, I really like the part where editor made Tinyon into a bunch of IKEA builder for furniture and all that to learn how to build stuff. It's great, and it was a really funny scene to show their progress. So I don't know who the next Nyon ally will be. I don't know.
Taking apart the mall piano with just a crowd of them was very good. Like, of all the ways they could have gotten that information, it's like, yeah, we'll just take apart this piano that's out in public. That's fine.
Yeah, to be honest, the skill reset anyway. So
Yeah. And Mr. Europe pointed out that the damn Knoll kids, instead of going to school, are glued to their phones and being corrupted by the TikToks and the Twitters. And you got to wonder what kind of TikToks they're getting in the post-spirited child generation, or if the GDI is only pulling stuff from before the kids went missing. Like, I don't know if they ever confirmed what the end date is for the stuff that they find in the world of You and Me and how updated it is. So that's a very good question of what kind of social media experience they're getting at the time. Joseph, and then we'll go on to the next question on the list here.
I think, sorry, if this one is like my answer, like stay a little bit off the topic. So the point came up, like why was Knowles like trying to go into the military base? I think the main reason for that, like if they hit a like a big secret, right? Like there's no way they can protect that secret. Like if they make a piano, people were like, oh, they made a piano, so they can leave them alone. But if they hit like a jackpot, many of this like nation can just go after them. Like fact is, we definitely need this technology. I think music was like pretty simple thing, so people can let them get away with it, or they're gonna get annihilated too, though. Like it's pretty easy and like inward to just kill people for it. Sorry.
Yeah, they certainly made a very good choice in the technology that they decided to spread. The printing press, the musical instruments, and the fabric technology are all really great choices for them for early industrialization, pre-industrial societies trying to upscale their production and mechanize it a little bit. It was very funny to see all this talk about like Drakes and Minotaur engineers who can't figure this shit out because they just never thought about it because they're so trapped in their skill brains. And yet, even though that is the case, Editor had to get his head knocked in to remind him of the fact that sometimes skills are actually more useful. When Desky was like, yeah, I can take this metal bar and just spin it into wire. It's not a problem. I got skills and magic. Like just totally circumventing a piece of technology that would be incredibly involved to make otherwise. Bleitzel pointed out that there was also a lot of porn, and there was that one human guy who was like, hey, let me into the sex tent. And then, oh, the sextant, the navigational tool. He was very disappointed when he walked away from that conversation. And it's true, Knowles are based for the printing press. And yes, Ralden was talking about a steam engine, so he might have to go visit the tribes, or the people in the tribe that are trying to build a steam engine might just come to Liskor and settle in with Desky, and then he can work with them to build his steam engine alchemy wagon. So, the next question, not really a question, it's more of a statement, is the expo begins, and with it, an international. I see a couple of options here that have been crossed out and then have been reworded into an international political strength measuring contest. So, all the big names that we've seen and heard so much about are showing up here, or at least all the ones that are important to the Knolls. So, we got some of the walled cities, we got Kaz, we got Minos, we got Kelt. And then, of course, Nahavia's got to show up in a big bad way and run straight into Inkar pretty much right after she gets into the party. And then after that, we start to get. Now, someone wrote Empire of Sands here, but I'm pretty sure the Empire of Sands was not present. Did they have a diplomat or somebody there? I saw a lot of other kingdoms mentioned in Chandrar, but I don't think they were.
Oh, they were present.
Did they have a diplomat there, or were they on a scrying orb? Because that was the other thing, is we had like important people had a diplomat in person, and then everybody else was just on an orb, orbing in. I'm not sure if the Empire of Sand actually had like a diplomat there. Not super relevant, anyways, because they didn't really do much this chapter. relatively speaking. But it was interesting that all these nations in Chandrar specifically were the ones that were making a big fuss at the event, and of course Mojave has fallen, spending the most money out of all of them. And you have to wonder if part of the reason why Nurhavia acted the way she did is because of the nations that were present, or if she would have done the same thing regardless of who showed up. Like if it had been all the Tyrandian kingdoms and like nobody from Chandrar, if she would have still done the same things that she did. So, does anyone have any thoughts about the initial political bickering between these nations and their monetary measuring contest? Yes, red ink.
So, like this, I was just thinking of like all the political stuff. I don't know exactly where your cutoff is, but like when Naravia started interacting with people, like Eileen would start taking notes of her hand signs, her royalty gang hand signs. You know, she was taking notes, and then she like almost blushed when Naravia talked to her. And then when Naravia was like, "Tell me what you really think," and everyone started spewing bile, I thought that was crazy. But with regards to like the early stuff, I liked how I liked how Abel's king Itramedes was like, "I should have gone to this in person. Why did you tell me I should have gone to this in person?" I thought that was hilarious. And then he was the only one of the named characters or named nations that we know about that didn't know about Earthers. I thought that was crazy. And then also how the Blighted Kingdom was like, oh, there's a secret. We'll induct you into the secret. Some of us know, some of us don't. And it's kind of funny because they have the most to lose if everyone finds out the origin of the Earthers, which is the Blighted Kingdom, and their summoning, because they sacrifice the unborn of the whole world. So, like I know they're good at like keeping the lid on secrets in the Blighted Kingdom, but that one might be too big, and especially with the Nervia now existing. If Nervia finds out, there's no way she's not going to blackmail them, or she could like use a skill, and the whole world would find out all those babies that died was because of the Blighted Kingdom. So yeah, that's a little off topic, but yeah.
But it's a very good point because we know she knows stuff, but now the question is how much does she know, and how much is she willing to keep secret, and how much the rest of the world can afford. How many secrets can the Blighted Kingdom let go before everything goes to shit for them?
I mean, like if you look at it, they don't have a lid on Nervia at all. They only got 1 day of silence from her, so she'll be back. This is not done between them, you know.
Oh, for sure.
And she's
Well,
got
and those are only the initial terms. We don't know that she agreed to a single day in the second round
you
of
think it might
contract
be longer?
negotiation.
I don't think she would have agreed to a long time because she's too smart for that.
Oh yeah, no, it wouldn't be very long, but like
Yeah.
it could be longer than a single day.
And also, it was just the silence on that one thing. It wasn't like silence on the Blighted Kingdom in general. You know, it was
Exactly.
it was a silence on like, oh, this assassin wasn't from the demons. It was from the Blighted Kingdom. That was basically it. I think that was what that's what the contract was over. But Nervia is especially threatening not only to Blighted Kingdom but to Rashal, because she's an individual, so she's not affected by that public relations skill, because the public relations skill affects like large amounts of people, but it doesn't affect individuals. And Nervia has an ability to show like bad moments to entire nations, to entire peoples. So she could blow up the Blighted Kingdom. She could blow up the Rochelle. She's gonna be going crazy. She's gonna be causing all kinds of chaos, bringing truths to light. So we'll see what happens.
That is a very good point. She definitely sees those threads in the world, and the fact that she used that specific skill was not just a message to Nerhavia's Fallen and the Renaz kingdom, or whichever kingdom it was, the kingdoms of the western provinces whose contract she broke. And I know we're getting a little bit ahead of where we're at, but yeah, the fact that she used that specific skill in that specific way right after we had the chapter where all this shit was going on with Rochelle was very much telling us, oh, she can
Yeah,
blow
I
that
think it's
shit up whenever she wants.
foreshadowing. I think it's foreshadowing for sure. And also that contract being broken, I don't think it was just with one nation. I think it was all their contracts. All those old contracts with all the nations, I think she broke all of them. Because
It wasn't
written on
every
this.
contract. It was all the Western province kingdoms. So all the ones that were named in
Okay,
there,
but
that specific
it was
contract
like
she was looking at.
all those Chandrar kingdoms that like existed back then. That's what it was, right? So like
Yeah, so the remnants were the ones she mentioned that most of them were gone, but several of the names she still recognized as being active.
yeah,
All of those ones have now had this specific contract broken.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if Yasame is going to like the Queen of Neravia's Fallen is up to the challenge. Like
Oh no, absolutely not.
yeah, I don't think she's up to the challenge because not only is she fighting Floss, right, which is like hard enough, you know, that's like enough to end your nation, and then you also have to fight. You have to fight all these other countries that are just broken away from being controlled by you.
Dude.
You know, so it's kind of crazy.
Yo, my speculation is so like in the Neravia Fallen, right? It's not like a queen-led kingdom. It is led by like its court. Like most of the decision is done by courts. So there's a like Yishmei, she has like a no power. She's literally like a mouthpiece.
No, I think in any country you have as much power as you can take.
But don't like they specifically mentioned that like Neravia Fallen, like they don't want to give power to a queen because the tyrant was like a sole power there. So for that, like there's a pretty big check and balances on the queen's power, or like
if Yasame was more skilled
they
at
go
working
through kings
court
and queens pretty regularly. Like they kill them off.
If Yasame was more skilled at working court, she'd be higher level and be more powerful. But
yeah, but they're gonna just kill her.
She's like level 20 as a lord or whatever, you know.
Yeah, but they're gonna kill her. They don't want like over leveled queen on their throne. Like
they're gonna find out. They're about to fuck around and find out what happens when the leader of your country is under leveled. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Nerhavia's Fallen is in a bad way in terms of everything they have going on right now. They definitely got a lot. So backtracking a little bit, I want to read this skill and kind of just talk about the skill a little bit because there's a lot of detail packed into this one giant skill that tells us a lot about Nerhavia. Because the skill she has is I am the origin of contracts. By the right of mendacity, I annul any oath, I shatter every pact. And mendacity means to lie. So by the right of lying, I can annul any oath and I shatter every pact. And I think this is her saying that because Yasami was lying and they had broken the spirit of the contract, she could annul it and break it. And that's why she was so able to do it. But the fact that it also says that she is the origin of contracts and that we know the Merchants Guild, we assumed it was because of the contract stuff we got earlier in the volume with the Merchants Guild, but now we know like flat out she's saying that she's the origin of this contract system that the world still uses, and everybody that touches it is benefiting from her effectively. But we'll go back a little bit further here because there was Nerhavia did a lot of stuff this chapter. Like we got off onto the history of Nerhavia's Fallen a little bit, but there was also like the stuff with Inker and her trying to use her travel skill on Nerhavia and the items that were created from that, which were both pretty wild. And what the hell is a Heartstone? What does it mean? What can it be used for? Why was Nerhavia willing to accept that as a gift? Like how bad did it have to be? So some things to ponder on, but I'm going to go back up here because I think I skipped past Bleedsoul. You wanted to say something.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about the political bickering. I think,
Yes.
yeah, I think the Knolls have made like a strategic mistake and put like the rich with the poor countries and everybody like together to bid on items. They should have made like two separate expos, one for the, the high end stuff for the rich and the moderate one for the poorer countries. So it doesn't create that much
No.
split between the rich and the poor. Yeah, with regards to what I mean, Laravia, I mean, yeah, she apparently like a master manipulator who knows people and she can just discern. She wants challenge. Uh, so uh, uh, yeah, I mean the politics. I mean, yeah, they are bickering, of course. The Drakes are not agreeing with each other. Like the others have abandoned the race with when they heard like they're gonna sink some ships to get the thing, the blueprints and stuff. So yeah, I mean, there's no unity between. I mean, the only unity we've seen so far is between the Western countries, besides Naravia falling, the small ones like the Skade and the other ones. So yeah, I mean, disunity is like the marquee of of any world. So everybody has their own interest and stuff. So yes, I think just so it could have been done better, avoided all these kind of conflicts if they did like two expos, one high end and one for the countries who cannot afford all kind of stuff.
Bro,
Yeah,
that is a very big insult to all the poor nations, though.
what?
If they do it like that, people just gonna assume you're insulting them. Like it's a nation pride. You cannot like put them in. Okay, you are the poor nations. You go there.
But
That is a very big open insult,
yeah,
right?
yeah, but an insult. I mean, they were insulted by being at bid anyway. They were at bid like by hundreds of thousands. So
No,
you
no,
don't.
they can, but like they gotta make a public venue where everybody can come in. But they can after that they can do just private sales just to keep the poor nation happy. But they cannot just go like this. Okay, the higher nations go there, lower nations go there. Bro, that is a very big insult. Like if they don't do like a public venue sale before, like that is a big insult, and Knowles cannot afford this big of an insult to anybody.
So
Like
a couple different things going on here, because so first of all, they did have a plan, and maybe they should have been a little bit more foresighted about this, because Faker kept talking about how her seating arrangement got fucked up, and it kept
yeah,
getting fucked up, presumably by Nurhavia, possibly by the other diplomats that were there using their various diplomat skills to pull some bullshittery to do their own political, capital exchange, etc. But they had a plan, and they should have also planned for sabotage, especially after they started pissing off the Drakes. Like the fact that they didn't have anything prepared for that and had to be rescued by Nurhavia was a bit of a cell phone on the part of the Knolls. They should have been more aware, and the Knolls should have had somebody that was some kind of a diplomat to tell them, hey, you got to be prepared for sabotage if you're going to pull this stuff, and not just narrow in the background shouting, inopportune trip, that was uncalled for, which was hilarious, but also, you know, still a cell phone on the part of the Knolls. But with that said, the idea of doing two separate expos, I mean, we kept seeing these moments where something would be shown off. People would start bidding on it and just shouting out numbers of gold. And then meanwhile, the smart diplomats were just leaving the room to go have a private conversation with Editor or somebody in the backstage area and make their own deals. Like, all these deals are still happening. It's just that some people get to be publicly wasting money buying this and being able to say that they're the ones that bought it. Even if some of them also at the end tried to throw in terms like, oh, you can't sell this to anybody else for 8 months. I don't know if they actually got that term. I know they asked for it. But like, if somebody else bought it before they finalized the sale, then they're still getting their exclusivity for 8 months after they've already sold it to 20 other people before that. It's all in the timing of these contracts. So there's games they could be playing, and probably some games they did play. But yeah, there was a little bit of that was probably the most frustrating moment with that was their ability to get so screwed up so quickly and have absolutely no ability to come back from that without Nurhavia stepping in to have the best moment ever.
Yeah, who is the most political savvy in the Knolls though? Like who'll be the first person to come in on you guys' mind?
Who's the most
Like
political what?
political savvy. Like who can manage this stuff the best for Knolls? Who do you
For the
guys think?
Knolls.
Yeah, like I completely understand your point, but I cannot imagine a person like who will be like, okay, you want this guy to handle this stuff. Like all the politics were Knolls, right?
Well, I mean, I think the first answer would be a dedicated diplomat if you happen to find one for stuff like this, because that's what their class is for. But on the other hand, you get an administrator in there, like a certain Doombearer that they were just told to hire and put to work. That's a possibility as well. But yeah, there was a lot to unpack with the whole political conference there. I'm just going to catch up on some of the comments here because I know there were several while we were going through all of that. So let me just backtrack a little bit. Tina's mentioned that there was some speculation that Nurhavia's hand signs wasn't just a coded message, but involved invoking a skill through some kind of sign language. Now, that's an interesting idea. We know people can invoke skills without saying them, and that's something that high-level people tend to do naturally, but it would be very fun if it turned out the entire time she was actually just using sign language to say some of her skills just because she could, or she was used to it. Morton thought maybe she was playing the notes on her imaginary piano. She definitely did that as well when she was just hanging out in her little castle. Gridcube says maybe she was doing some non-skill hypnotizing stuff, or maybe she was talking to a force ghost that was kept off screen, since, as we previously mentioned, there were about 36 people that were reincarnated with her, and we only had the 3 of them that were named and showed up in this chapter with Nurhavia. In the topic of Yasami being able to face Nurhavia, I think that she doesn't really have much that Nurhavia can leverage against her. She's mostly a queen. All she wants to do is read. So I do think that she has an opportunity if she can survive a lot of plots that would get other leaders into problems, maybe. And Sahelia says, I think Isami is going to do some power leveling and perhaps become a Nurhavia magistrate. She loves stories. If she gets a book on an alternate history, I think she will have her mind changed. And I think she has some steel in her and will eventually be more competent. I would love it. I would love the Yasami redemption arc where she actually becomes competent and works for Nurhavia. I don't know if it'll happen, but it'd be great. I don't want her to die. She's cool. She's the other fanfic writer in universe that we know about that is awesome besides Caroline. So, that's something. Morrison says private auctions have been mentioned. The Drakes from meddling was the seeding from the beginning. That's interesting if it was the Drakes and not just Nurhavia. Gridcube thinks it's Nurhavia and messed with Feshi. Very possible. Very possible. And then Prince Merton the Fabulous. Was that another Mercia name? And then a couple other comments where people just talking to each other. And then Sahelia says, Krishaya would do well as a diplomat. The problem is that Knolls have been so insular that they're not good at this stuff. Yeah, and they have those splinter tribes now that are, officially disowned, but are running around just sacking cities to get back at the Drakes. Or at least that's the narrative that's being spun. Maybe more of them are doing stuff like freeing, the Knoll slaves that some of these Drake cities have been keeping under the guise of the PA worker program. Those guys should all be getting rescued. But they do certainly leave it up in the air about what the heck the Knolls are going to do next. And then, so going back to the questions, I'm going to scroll through these and we'll kind of jump ahead a little bit because we talked about a lot of this stuff here. Kind of got out of order a little bit. So some of the things that were mentioned in the questions here is Nurhavia really evil? is Inker controlled by Nerhavia, even though she gave back the Heartstone? And, you know, if you had any thoughts about what Nerhavia was teaching Inker about her class and just also, like, you know, personal manipulation in general. So much lore, the history of Nerhavia's empire and its fall, the casual lore drops just throughout from the Knoll, from the Stitchfolk guy, Astival, and the Garuda, Fala Mazuril. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the Knoll's name. I think it's Corleone. It kind of sounds like Corleone, like the mafia name. So I'm just assuming he's the mafia Knoll now. He's Corleone, Don Corleone, the mafia Knoll traveler. Neril doing his diplomacy with the lost child poi was fantastic. I honestly thought Mersha was doing it for real for about 2 seconds. And then I realized it had to be a ploy because Neril is too damn good at his job and everything he does. As soon as she held up the note about the walled city, I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, she's absolutely doing this on purpose because she's not that dumb anymore. And then the grand finale of the expo, the musical performance, the Drake Sabotage going full force, the piano playing, the amazing, as I mentioned before, amazing work by Andrea Parsono, the narrator of the Wandering Inn audiobooks, recording this song and, backed by the piano track that we then get to listen to as we read through the lyrics, which have been modified to fit into in-world. And what a message that song is saying. Because, hot damn, the world's all going to burn, and we're going to burn together, but at least we're going to taste like fried yellets while we do it. And then we get through all of that. And we get to Nerhavia saying, all right, I'm done with the fun now. Everybody is going to start being honest with a red skill of all things. And now you have to wonder, how many other red skills does she have? What kind of things does a tyrant class give her? What in the world is she doing by making these people tell the truth? And the last part, the big part of the chapter that I know a lot of people are going to have thoughts about, so you can start getting them ready now, the conversation with King Otheus IV of the Blighted Kingdom and the hostile negotiations that went on between there. I'm sure several people are going to have things they want to say about this, so feel free to start typing it now or ping me in the chat if you want to start saying it. And that whole interaction there at the end of the chapter is probably the last big thing we haven't talked about yet. So if you don't want to have anything about this, if you do have any final thoughts on the chapter or things you want to say about the chapter, you can also start throwing those in there, because once we talk about this last part here with Otheus, I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up because we're about an hour and a half into this now.
Should I wait?
Yep, you can go ahead, Joseph.
Bro, I think we may get a lot of Arthur getting assassins this season as well. Like, I'm not getting ahead of myself, right? I'm staying on topic. Just wanted to make sure with you.
Yeah, no, you're good. You can go ahead.
Yeah, the assassination at the end, I feel like we may get a lot of Arthur getting assassin this season. Like, that was like a blatant attack by like a blighted kingdom. And they will maybe coming after a lot of Arthurs, man. Like, Rochelle was killing Arthurs. Now Blighted Kingdom is going that way. Things might get pretty brutal, eh? Holy shit. Also, like, I really love that interaction between Orpheus and Nerhavia. Like, how scared that guy was. Like, he is one of the highest level king, and he was scared. Like, he was scared, man. And I really love that part. Like, that was beautifully done. Like, as soon as like more people are coming out, like a lot of high level people, I think we had a talk about Cognita getting involved in the story, right? This may get her involved. Like the people theory about New Death being a Cognita sister. So we may have like a Cognita heading to Blighted Kingdom, yo. You never know. Like so many options. I really love the last part. And Naravia can be pretty decisive for the fandom though. People may love her, people may hate her, but she can be like a pretty decisive though. But she's an evil lady though. Oh my gosh. She kept that lady head for 600 years. That was brutal. That was like nicely done as a revenge for 600 years. My god, lady. My god. Yeah, man. I'm done. That's it for yes.
It was an interesting point in the backstory of Fezumuro, the Garuda, that she mentioned that by the end of her life, she was alone and nobody was on her side anymore. And at that point, that's when Nerhavia beheaded her and kept her alive for 600 years. When there was nothing left on her side except for herself, everybody that was with her had abandoned her and had joined Nerhavia's empire and become one with those ideas. And then this is what we got, was her beheaded and stuck on a wall of a city for hundreds of years. Um, and yeah, the stuff with Otheus, the fear that he experienced from her, even above and beyond what he felt from Sheta, or Sarampatva, or Sylvania, for that matter, was very interesting. And I have some more thoughts on that, but I'll wait and see what other people have to say. Gridcube mentioned that Nahavia went full Eminence in Shadows, which is an anime where the MC said, "I am atomic," and then blew up a nuclear bomb using magic. And oh my god, yeah, it really did. And Mortian pointed out that the proper name for the king of the Blighted Kingdom is the Beshited King Putheus. Which is a very good point. And Willow, go ahead.
So one thing that I wanted to bring up, that it's not directly pertinent to the chapter, but we have now seen 3 different sort of skills that allow global range private communication between categories of people. And I'm curious, because we've now seen this new one, which is like a ruler-based arbiter of weirdness that apparently nobody else knows about other than the Blighted King and Nervalia. But we also have the Pavilion of Secrets, and also the negotiation zone for the Lucifin for making deals. So potentially there might be other skills like this hidden among other classes or worlds that allow other forms of communication and deal making.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
And then one other thing, this separate. Nobody brought up that Merhalia, several times through the chapter, it's mentioned that she's talking to herself or talking to empty rooms, and she's very explicitly, at least it implied to me, that she was talking to the system or trying to, like she was looking for sentience where there wasn't any. And
100%.
I'm curious because I don't remember any time where she saw it being alive. Like only a few people have had any interactions with the system. And I don't know where Nahalia got the idea that there's something out there watching and listening.
Well, it was mentioned in the chapter. So she mentioned that when Emerhane turned on skills and everything in the Deadlands, everybody in the Deadlands got that notification that had been activated. And so she heard something, and she was able to see that her skills worked when she was just a soul. So there was something about her soul, and there's a lot of talk about her with soul and religion, which is another thing we didn't really get into. Is Nerhavia is thinking a lot about religion right now, and she's talking to the system that rules the world, which is operated by people who run religions, aka gods. And there's a lot of shit that could potentially go on or get unpacked with that. But she's also very explicitly trying to talk to the system and get the system to respond to her. And as we've now been getting hints and teases of for several chapters over the latter half of volume 9 and into volume 10, is we know the system is being more proactive and it's responding to different issues and looking at problems and addressing them. And there's a very real chance we're going to see the system interact directly with Nerhavia at some point. And who the hell knows what's going to happen once that goes off.
The funny thing about her because she's like trying to figure out what's out there, like trying to understand if it's religion or if it's gods or what even runs it. It's just she's so used to manipulating everything, she's just going out in a very her way.
Yeah, she's like, I want to get in on this new squeeze and, get my piece of the pie because I already tried taking over the world, but why not take over reality? Like, fuck taking over the world. Take over everything and see what we can do with it.
Yeah, that's all for me.
And Tina's mentioned, so the skill, apparently, even though we didn't get it as in skill text format, it had a title at least, was the Arbitrage of Imperium. Might be one of those special royal skills that independently exist, like the Kuras previously mentioned. And it certainly seems to be, it's an inherited skill, since, we learned that Othius learned it from his mother using it on him when he was a child, which maybe explains why these guys get all blighted and twisted if they're having this kind of torturous experience put onto him as a kid for the sake of a single skill, among other issues with the kingdom, but that's neither here nor there. Morrison mentioned, I really like the implications that Nerhavia was schooling Jacana about her powers. I think here we see the Arbiter Queen discovers her hidden potential in a future fight against Rochelle. That would be good, I think, if we do get to see her use some of those arbitration powers against Rochelle. I think if we're going to see it anywhere, we're going to see it between Arabathi and Aaron. If Nubitin ever ends up finding her, I think Jacana is going to play a big role in adjudicating that, because Nubitin just kept talking about justice. He wants justice, even though he was talking about revenge and vengeance, and those are clearly on his mind as well. He's also old and tired, and maybe he just wants the truth and justice more than he wants vengeance and fire and death. But we'll see how he actually acts once he's out in the world. And Superbred Ninja says, Aaron already pulled Nerhavia into the pavilion and told her about the GDI off screen, which is extremely possible and extremely exciting and terrifying, because Aaron should know better than to pull people who are smarter than her into the pavilion. So, I'm going to make another call here for final thoughts. So if you have final thoughts, things you want to say about the chapter 10.17, go ahead and start typing them in now, or give me a ping, and we'll wrap up here in another couple of minutes. Once I stop the recording, you guys are welcome to stick around and chat. People like to do that sometimes after the recording's over. You don't have to leave right away, and you're welcome to stick around and discuss what's going on if you want to talk then. So, catching up on the comments here. Gridcube says, the problem with justice for the prince assassination is that Aaron didn't even notice who he was. He was just in the way. Yes, but she also knows that he was trying to kill Rabbit Eater for essentially no other reason than racism. And that's very interesting given how multicultural Aribathi is and how Nubitin thinks about all these different cultures in his nation and how they're so disparate and nice, but somehow goblins are literally the devil and they're the worst, and therefore goblins deserve to die but nobody else. That doesn't seem to mesh up with his overall attitude. As Joseph said, it was just Tuesday for Aaron. That's right, Aaron is actually M. Bison. Superbred Ninja says that Nerhavia is a cutie. I mean, she's just a normal lady. She's got brown hair, black eyes. Wait, black hair, brown eyes. She's just a normal person. She seems nice. She's got a good, nice smile. Tina says, I think Nerhavia's way is the wrong way to go for Jacana. Previously, Jacana invited other rulers to make their own judgment and derive power and authority from their consensus. Nerhavia is pushing her to do it all herself and impose her own will on everybody, just like she did. Well, see, that's the interesting thing about arbitration, is you can arbitrate to a consensus, but when it comes down to a matter of fact or a matter of law, a judge has to be able to make a binding decision on all parties. And in order for it to be binding, they have to have a certain amount of power. And maybe that pushes Decana into like using contracts to enforce her judgments, which would, just be essentially feeding power to Nerhavia to some extent, but it would be an interesting idea. And there's a little bit of back and forth about Sere and Sylvania. They are from the same village. They are from Ettertree, which is a grove in the kingdom of Avel, the kingdom of Bows, which is where Sylvania has always been from, even though her name was crossed out. And a lot of people wanted to say it was Kaz, just because Kaz is sometimes abbreviated as a 4-letter country, even though their full name is longer. I was one of those people. I'm being very hypocritical here by saying it was obvious that she was from Avel the entire time, but that's okay. I'm allowed to do that. Grid Cube says, final thoughts. Chapter was great. Nerhavia is obviously doing all the shady work that Aaron would never do. Aaron wants the world to level. Nerhavia will make the world level. So, with that, thank you again, everyone, for joining us. We're now an hour and 45 minutes into this, so I'm going to wrap this up and say once again, thank you for joining us for the discussion of Interlude, Another Time, and Chapter 10.17 of The Wandering Inn. You can find us uploaded on YouTube sometime in the next period of time. And as always, stick around for a discussion afterwards.